My name is Holly Amato, and today I have Juliana Meidl, founder and owner of Serenity at Home, a Metro Detroit based home organizing company, with me today on the Onward and Upward show. Juliana has been changing people's lives for the past 6 years by helping them get their homes and lives in order. Thanks so much for joining me today, Juliana.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. And I'm so looking forward to this conversation because I know firsthand how instrumental and life-changing it is when you're, able to come in and make some spaces not just organized, but enjoyable to be in.
Yes.
And it's so huge, right? And,
Yeah.
before we get into it though, I thought it would be kind of fun to point out the fact that you actually bleed green and white, and that's your first love in life.
It is. Don't tell my husband and kids that, but yes, it actually is. So,
I love that. We're a
yes,
big MSU family over here too.
yes, yes. I went to MSU. My husband did. My oldest daughter did. We're huge college sports fans. I believe I have Sparty in my background. I can see in my picture here. So, yeah, we love Michigan State.
Yeah, and you did mention to me that you do rearrange your life around it. So that's the only thing your clients might have to be aware of.
Yes, there is right. I am not scheduling a job during a big basketball or football game. I hate to say
Right.
it. So,
Right.
we
Well,
work
you got to
around
have
the
your
important
priorities.
things.
Yeah, got to have those priorities straight.
Exactly.
Well, so here's the thing. It's like a little known fact to many people, but before I got into real estate, I actually worked as a professional organizer and I loved it. And so I'm always curious about the story behind what leads people into business for themselves. So what prompted you to start Serenity at Home?
So I actually started it with a business partner, a very dear friend of mine, and we were just at a stage of life. Our youngest daughters were the same age. They were going to be going into high school soon. And, we were both just kind of looking for something of ourselves and really excited about possibly starting our own business. And, as we spent time brainstorming, the one thing that we both had a shared passion for was organizing and helping people, but this was now going to be almost 7 years ago. And so, at the time it was like, is this really a business? Can we really make a business out of it? And then the more we looked into it, we absolutely could make it a business. And so, we just kind of took that leap of faith, wanting just the freedom that having your own business can provide you and just the excitement of creating something of our own. And you were just at that right moment in time where it seemed like, let's take the chance, let's do it. And we did. And we did it together through 2020, which was amazing. And then after 2020, my business partner at the time, she went in back to a corporate job just for family reasons. And so since then, it has just been mine. But I always like to say she's still my biggest supporter and fan. And while it's not been the same without her, I just have loved growing this business.
Well, and you when you said 2020, something sparked in my mind. I'm wondering, do you have like videos? Do you do any virtual staging or virtual organizing or any type of for people maybe who aren't, because I know you're Michigan based.
Right.
Or maybe that's something that we could talk about getting into. I was just thinking when you said 2020, I thought, is she doing this virtually too?
Yeah.
Because that would be
I
something interesting.
I've not done a lot of it. I have done a few jobs, but
Okay.
absolutely there are ways to do it virtually and just help clients with just space planning. So I have done a bit of that as well, just kind of helping them see what's possible. And then really, sometimes people just don't understand what are the few key things you need to make sure you understand before you go out and buy product and all that kind of stuff and kind of what the process is. So yes, I absolutely have done it and would love to do more of it.
Well, because the overwhelm is real. I think people don't really understand what it feels like to not have that chaotic feeling of being unorganized. As soon as you are organized, it's like the lights go on and it's just a huge change. I see it with people all the time too, because a lot of times they start doing the process right before they move,
Yes.
right? And I know you work with people who are moving. That's a huge niche for you, is people who are moving and getting ready. But I mean, what have you seen just with your own, experience with clients? What would you say is maybe the most rewarding part of coming in and like starting in this place, like your before and then those afters?
So I would say really the thing that provides the most, like, just great gratitude, the ability to come in and work with those clients that truly are so overwhelmed. And what happens is things can get out of control very easily. Let's be honest. It doesn't take much for things to kind of spiral, especially those of us who have kids. You work, all of a sudden years go by, and you're like, how did things get so out of control? And the problem is when things are so overwhelming and there's so much stuff, which is really probably most people's biggest problem, is there's just simply too much stuff. What happens is you don't know how to fix the situation because you don't know where to start. And I always say, if you don't know where to start, you never start, right? Like, because you just don't know. So you don't know how to take that first step. And so having someone come in who, one, is not attached to anything, because that's a lot of what can cause anxiety for people, is when they think about going through things and getting rid of things, is the attachment that they have to certain things. And so, again, sometimes it's easier to just put it aside because you don't want to deal with having to make some of those decisions, for example. But, we can come in, look at a space. I'm not attached to anything, it's not my house. And I can quickly see all the possibilities, right? Like, so where someone just sees chaos, I look at it and I'm like, oh, we can do this. If we add this, instantly, I can know what we need to do. And so, and I would say, actually, every time when I look at a space and I tell a client, like, okay, I think it will take X amount of time, they're shocked because in their minds, they can't even envision how to even start. And, we can kind of come in and generally in a day or two transform any and all spaces. So I think just seeing that and seeing the weight lifted off my clients' like shoulders, like it's just like a weight is lifted. That is probably the phrase I've heard more times than any, and they're just so grateful to have somebody help them get through the stuff, set up a system for them so that they can see, okay, now this is the way I can manage things moving forward. I mean, it's life changing for so many people. And to be a part of that experience and to help them is just, it's amazing.
It's definitely life changing. Something funny. So, this past weekend, I've been thinking about moving. So, I went through my basement and it wasn't fun, but I pulled out so many things. My kids' trophies. I mean, I don't even know how many trophies went out to the garbage today. They didn't want them. I'm like, why am I holding on to some of this stuff? Right. So, and then my family, my dad and my son, I had them haul everything up. All went to the curb today. And it did. I felt so good just seeing that sit there. Like, it was such an accomplishment to me. It's
It's
not in the
huge.
back of my mind. It's not in the back of my brain, like with that message telling me, you need to get down there, you got to get started on this. And, it's a lot. And you put it off because there's 100,000 things you'd rather be doing. But yeah,
Exactly.
it changes your life. And if you're living in a whole home like that, especially small spaces, which I'd love to chat with you, I want a couple things and you can kind of attack this however you'd like, but I'd love to know, first of all, where you guys, like majority of where your work is, where you are able to go,
Mhm.
and your size of your staff. And you kind of already said, you talk about how long it takes to get jobs done, but what is that process? How's your business set up in that way? What's the process if somebody wants to work with you? What areas are you available to them?
I'm based out of Rochester, so North Oakland County. So we do all of Oakland County. Honestly, Macomb, Wayne, we can kind of go most places probably within an hour
Okay.
of Rochester is generally
Okay.
kind of the guideline. We do travel though, and we've done that before. There's obviously a few different arrangements for that. So really we can go anywhere. I'm all for, Florida in the winter, wherever you want us to go, we can come.
Oh,
So
let's go to Florida.
yes, exactly. Northern Michigan in August, great. So we
Yeah.
can do all of that. So we do travel. I have a team of 4 women who work with me. They're all amazing. And when I go in and meet with a client, one of the first things obviously is I look at the scope, look at how much work is involved, look at the space that we're going to be working in, and then I just determine how best I think my team can come in. So in some cases, it may just be 2 of us. Other times we can bring 4 or 5 people. An example of where we would bring in a lot of people would be like big move jobs. So, and we'll probably get in more into like our whole, like how we help realtors and moving. But, we do full home unpacking jobs, and we'll do packing jobs. We do light staging, like getting ready for the realtor photos. And so in that case, it's very easy for me to bring in, let's say, four realtors, excuse me, four organizers. And then we just kind of can split up. I can have someone setting up the kitchen. I can have people in bedrooms, and it just makes the process faster, which is generally obviously what the clients would love. Sometimes though, just one, the scope isn't big enough and two people's great. We always, like I said, we always send two people. And then sometimes I've had jobs where I would say from a work, what like needs to get done, it would make sense to bring more people, but the space itself just doesn't allow for too many people. And so if I don't think we're adding value by bringing more people, I don't do that. So I don't need people tripping all over each other because we can't all come in and out at the same time. So it really just depends. I do offer a complimentary in-home consultation because I think it's really important for, I mean, one, obviously I need to see the space. I like to see it firsthand. I want to be able to measure when I need to measure things and just, get a feel for the whole home too, even if we're just doing one space. I think it's important to see it all. But then I kind of just decide based off of all of that, what makes the most sense and how best we can add value to the project. So I just look at it, meet with the client, and then put our recommendations together and we go from there.
Okay, perfect. And then what would you say? I mean, obviously every job's different, not a big move, but let's say an average, let's say someone calls and they need a kitchen, maybe with the pantry reorganized. Would you say like how long would that take in a normal situation?
Most of the time that would be a day.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're really very efficient. We come in, we look at the project, as a team, however many of us are there, and we just kind of decide how to split up the work. And part of why I have always done this jobs where there's always at least two people is organizing is a collaborative process. And so it's just always, I feel that we provide more value to the client having at least two of us there. And we're just more efficient. Like I always think about certain jobs. And if it was just me doing it, like when we're doing sorting and working with clients on what to keep or not keep, we keep that process moving very fast because while one of us is, showing this client, what are we doing with this? The other person is packing it up and, we're sorting it into categories and we're running it out. We take all donations at the end of the day. So when we leave, it all leaves. So there's nothing left in the house. So, I don't want to leave my clients with 17 bags of donations that then sits around. Like we leave with everything. And so I just think having more people makes the process just more efficient. And I mean, at the end of the day, the faster we can do it for the client, the better.
Right, for sure. And then let's talk about moving because
Mhm.
I have obviously when I work with people, they are moving, right? And all realtors, that's the whole point.
Right.
And most of the time I can come in, I just go through and for staging and I just tell them what to do and they do it. And it's great, right? But there are some times where I'll walk through and I'll realize they're going to need some help. So obviously they give you a call and take me through what like someone who's moving and let's say you're working with a realtor, which I know you do.
Mhm.
I'm sure it's a quick process and you're able to get in, work with that real estate agent and say, okay, here's our time frame. This is when we'd like to do photos. When can you get in and, get that set? And obviously you're not bringing in furniture to stage, but you're just using what they have and doing it. Tell me about those situations.
Yeah, so I've worked enough with realtors that I do know what you all are looking for, which I always like to say is pretty much we want very little. Like that's just the
Yes.
theme, very little.
Bare bones.
Right, right, exactly. I mean, it's so funny. Clients are like, "Really? You want to take that down?" I'm like, "Yes, we really want to get that out." So it's very similar. I meet with the clients, I walk through the spaces, and I go room by room, and I know what it is we need to do. And one of the things that working with an organizer is helpful for clients because a lot of people will just walk through and you start taking all those pictures off the coffee table and we're sticking it somewhere. You're throwing things in cabinets or whatever. We're going to
Yep,
come
that's what
in.
we do.
Right, exactly. So we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to, for example, all those personal items, we're going to pack up all those personal items. We label every box, we put boxes in storage rooms or wherever, we need to put the boxes. We also, go through all those knickknacks, all those things that are out that we want to clear off to have those very clean looking spaces. We work with the client to find out, okay, is this something you're taking to your next place, or is this something you need to let go of, or is it something you maybe want to pack for your grandchildren? And so we combine the process of packing with the process of the staging, the decluttering, the depersonalizing to really maximize that process for the client, right? And so and we're able to help them a bit too as they're trying to figure things out. It's really hard when people, especially, are downsizing, is really, where you can't take all this stuff with you. There's just simply not going to be enough space. So then, and again, not only just that we're either packing it or donating it or packing it for someone else, but it's just really being able to work with them at that time because moving is stressful for everybody. And people are usually overwhelmed and you just can't, there's just so many things you need to do. So to be able to bring someone in to not only get the house ready for what you guys need, which is the pictures and the listings, but to help them start the process of the packing and the thinking through of, okay, what do I really need to do? What do I not need to do at this stage? We can help them with that. And then we can help them throughout the entire process. So some clients will work with us all the way through the moving process. Some clients just have us in for certain parts of it, which is great. So, we can help them certainly get ready for the listings and the pictures and all of that. We can come in and pack after the house is sold. And the one thing that we stress every single time is make sure you do the purging before you move because it's very easy to be kind of like short-sighted. I'm busy. I'm just going to pack it all away, or I'm going to have the movers come in and pack it, and then I'll worry about it in my new house versus taking the time up front, which saves you money in the end, to say, okay, you know what? I haven't worn this in 7 years, or my kids outgrew that 2 summers ago. I don't need this stuff anymore. Let me donate that versus packing it up and then realizing, okay, I don't need this or I don't have space for it, whatever it is. And then on the back end, once they're in their new homes, we can come in and we unpack, we organize, so, and again, it's the same thing. We're not just unpacking and just, putting it wherever. We're thoughtfully setting up a kitchen, setting up the pantries, the mud rooms, the closets. And, some people may just say, you know what, I would love some help in my kitchen and pantry, the mud room, like those key spaces in a home. And then other people are like, I would love help with the whole house. And we can do whatever, whatever the client wants. And that kind of going back to your question about my team is, that's where having a team makes a big difference. Because if you do want several rooms or a whole house unpacked, I have enough people to do that in a very short period of time.
I mean, because I'm thinking about moving and just the thought of it all is a lot. So my question to you is, and I think it's probably different per client, but it sounds like you're working like side by side with your client. It sounds like they're there with you a lot of the time to make decisions on things. What is that like when you've basically got them there with you? Or do you basically say, hey, we're going to do this, this, and this. Let's put a game plan together and you go do it? How does that work?
So it varies by space, and then each space is a little bit different. So let's go to like a job that requires quite a bit of client input would be, let's say, a basement storage room, right? Like if we're going to go through a basement storage room, we need the client to decide what to keep and what not to keep. Now, there are ways to set up certain parameters, where we can make the process more efficient. If your kids are now in high school and you still have like little kid toys and you don't want to keep anything, that's very easy. We can just do that ourselves. But what we try to do, though, to make the process as efficient for the client as possible, again, going back to, let's say, the basement storage room, we pull everything out, we sort everything into categories, and then have the client decide what stays and what goes. And then after we know that part of it, then we We just organize everything that goes back. And then anything that doesn't, if they want to donate it or they're just tossing it, we take care of all of that. So in that case, we try to limit the amount of time the client has to spend with us by making it as efficient as possible for the sorting part of it. But then other jobs, let's say like a kitchen or a pantry, that can be very limited client involvement because one, we're not really attached to anything, certainly in a pantry. And, we can look at expiration dates. We can talk through kind of aesthetically what we're looking for in kitchens, how we may resort things, rearrange things, move things to other places of the house. But again, I mean, in some cases, if the client may be working in the house, I can send her a text or two, and that may be it. Or she may be able to stop in for 15 minutes, see where we're at, and that's all they need to do. So it really does depend on the space. We do a lot of closets too. So in that case, we may spend the time with the client up front to say, okay, let's talk about what we want to keep and not keep. And then, again, once that part of it's done, then we're ready to just go on our own.
Right. What would you say, like, you've been doing this for almost 7 years.
Yeah.
Is there a job that sticks out in your mind, like maybe the biggest transformation that you were able to come in and bring to life for someone?
That is a good question.
Well, they're all going to be transformations, right?
Yeah, they're all huge transformations for sure. I think the ones that probably have made the most impact have been the jobs with some, like the moms with the young kids, where
Mm,
they're just so overwhelmed. You're in that stage of life where there's so much stuff. And one of the things I always say to these young moms, 'cause I am not a young mom anymore, but I've been through that stage, is that stage is still very short. It feels like it's going to take forever when you're in it. I remember, at least I thought that. I was like, oh, it's never going to end. And then somehow you blink and you're like, okay, well, that did go by really fast. And then you're sad it's over. But I'm like, so part of it is because I'm a mom, everyone who works with me, we're all moms, we can really relate to moms no matter what stage of life they're in, right? And so, but seeing the transformation of helping them clear things out, get rid of the clutter, set up systems that make sense for them, because there's no one size fits all. Every family's different, every situation's different, every space is different. So we really come in and we create a unique plan for each client and for each space that meets their unique needs. So that's a really important part of the process too. It's not just us coming in and making things look better. I mean, that's great. And, you love to have beautiful pictures, but it's about understanding how clients live in spaces. What are the places that are causing them the most stress, the most anxiety? Where do they need the most help? And then understanding how that family functions to create the right solution for them. And so that's probably it. But I mean, we have left homes with clients in tears, huge hugs. It can be such a personal experience, right? And I think the thing that I'm the most proud of and the thing that really matters the most to me when I look at adding people to my team is finding people who are really good with people. Because at the
right.
end of the day, in my mind, there's a lot to being good at organizing and understanding how to do it and make things look good and function well. But you can figure that out. It's just really, I think the thing that's most important is for everyone on my team to be able to meet with the clients, understand where they're at that moment, meet them where they are, and being able to, between what they say and kind of how things look, figure out what is the best way to help them. And it's just incredibly rewarding when you can do that.
And I'm hearing patience in my mind. The word patience, right, is running through my mind because you made so many great points of, it's not just organizing for organizing's sake, but how do people live? What's going to change their life? How do you make it so it works for, and I know I had three in 3.5 years, and it's a crazy time of life, but just having that personality where you can come alongside and really support that and have patience, to go through and the questions and deal with some anxieties. but then, this finished product, which is going to be, their own home functioning in a way that's going to save them time, change their lives, just bring
Right.
everybody more peace. Like that,
Right.
that's huge.
It is
That's an
huge.
amazing accomplishment.
Well, and like, so for example, like this is kind of an example of what we're talking about. Like, so look at something like a pantry, right? Like, so, none of us are like that attached to a pantry, let's say, but it's understanding how that family is going to operate. So I don't come in and just look at a space and go, oh my gosh, we could add all these things. We can add all these products. I mean, we do label everything regardless, but like make it all look amazing without understanding how that family's going to function in that house. So I'm not serving them. I'm not helping them if I create all these systems that they're never going to maintain just because I think it looks really great. You know, so a great example would be some clients love to decant everything and put them in glass containers and we put the pretty labels on it. It looks amazing and it works really well for a lot of people and for certain things. But for some clients, they're like, listen, there is no way I'm doing that. So then that's not an option for them. That's not providing a solution to them. So maybe for some clients, the best thing we can do is put some baskets on the floor and they may, when they get home from Costco, open up the box, dump all the little bags in there and they're thrilled. For some people, they want all their protein bars separated in Lazy Susans by flavors. One
Right.
is right
Oh,
and one's not.
noted.
It's not right or wrong. It has to work for you. So we come in and really understand that before we start organizing.
Right. That's the thing. It's like you've got to really kind of, and I do the same thing in a different way with real estate, coming in and sitting down with clients for the first time. You want to kind of understand their energy and how they receive information great. And how am I going to communicate best? Because it's a relationship, right? Like there is a job that's going to be done, but there's a relationship. And I think communication is so important and just being able to really lay those expectations out that you have on your end. What do I need from you as the client? Here's what you're going to get from me. And then be able to come in and just accomplish that is it's huge.
Probably where I see it the most is actually with the moving clients, especially um, the clients that are maybe leaving a forever home and the
Yeah.
downsizing. Like it is so hard for them. And so it is so important that we're able to read their energy. I'm not going to come in and say, hey, we're going to come in with 5 people and we're going to do this for 8 hours. Like most people can't do that. Certainly people in their 70s who are moving out of their home, they don't have the energy or just the bandwidth to keep doing that. And it's
Mhm.
being able to read people well too, to understand, what, we have hit a wall here. Right?
Mhm.
Like they're tired, they can't make decisions anymore. And we can see that and just shift and we'll do something else. You know what, you go take a break. We've got some other things we'll do here. And there's just different things we can do too. Like there's certain things before we come, especially if maybe let's say clients are very budget conscious or we're under certain time constraints. There are ways that I can suggest that they do certain things before we come. And if they want to do that, great. That just makes the process more efficient for us. If not, we'll come in, we'll do anything that they need us to do. But it is really being able to meet them where they're at in that moment is really the
Right.
key.
For sure. And, we were talking about kids too. And I would love, so back to school time. It's
Mm,
like, so right now, like the end of a school year and the very beginning of a school year, I think is probably some of the most stressful besides Christmas and all the shopping and all the things and all the plays. But just because you're getting so much paper. It's like, especially if you have multiple children, they're coming home that first day, that first week of school, and especially if they have multiple teachers, all you're getting are different packets and syllabus, and I need this back and this needs to be signed. I can't even remember. So I was an elementary school teacher and I was an organizer for a period of time. But as a mom, literally, it floored me how overwhelming that is. And it's like there's papers everywhere. So I'd love to hear, like, maybe just take us through like actual, let's kind of just talk through a solution based scenario where you're walking us through what you'll do. I come to you, I'm a busy mom of 3 kids. They're all bringing stuff home. I've got backpacks, I've got lunch boxes, I've got papers everywhere. I need to set up something so that everyone's homework gets done so that I sign this when I'm supposed to. And if it's a green day or a red day or all these things, I'd love to hear like situational, like how you might tackle that. Because we'll be back to school time before you know it.
It's so true.
And I
Yes.
think this will help so many people.
Yeah. So before we get to that, I think the one thing, since we're in May, almost June, so the school year's ending,
Mhm.
I would say one thing that's so important, even though right at this moment, what is like May is like the worst month for moms, right? We're
It
all, it's
really
like
is tough. Yes.
crazy, crazy.
Yes.
Let's throw everything into one month.
Yes.
But
And call it
one,
Mother's Day,
right, exactly. Right. Let's honor moms while we're at it.
right? While you're stressing her out completely.
Exactly. Let's go to a bunch of plays and things. But
Yeah.
so I think one of the things I would say is when papers come home with the kids, look at it then and figure out, is this something I think I want to keep? It's very easy to just say, oh, here's the big bag of stuff from the end of the school year. I'm going to just throw it in the basement somewhere.
Mhm.
Really look at it and say, okay, is this something I'm really going to want? I mean, I spend a lot of time working with, you know, older moms whose kids have moved out of the house, and then they start going through all those bins and they're like, okay, my kids don't want any of this stuff, which
Right. They
really
don't
generationally they don't really want anything.
really.
And it's just like, what are the things that are going to be significant? So that I would say is important. It saves yourself on the back end of like having like, 16 bins of all your kids' artwork and stuff like that. But then as you're setting up systems for the new school year, it's really just like understanding the flow, right? How do kids come into the house? Do they come in through the front door? Do they come in through the garage? Do we have hooks for their bags? Do we have, places where the coats and the sports things are going to go? And then, whether it's setting up certain filing systems, and again, it kind of comes down to space though, right? I mean, it's very easy to say, I'd like a big desk and you can have, file folders for each of your kids. If that works and you have the space, that's great. But it's understanding the flow of how everybody moves in. And then, and it kind of goes into other areas too with kids, kind of going back to even like kitchens and pantries. Like, sometimes people really value creating spaces for their kids so that, especially when they're little, it's set up so that they can do certain things on their own, right? So we may want to make sure that all the lunch boxes and the sippy cups or the, water bottles and all that kind of stuff, they're in drawers or cabinets that are lower so that they can grab that stuff, because that's something that a mom's trying to instill in her kids. Like, I want you to do this for yourself. And then that can transcend into the pantry. We want to make sure, like, if we want kids to help getting their lunches ready for school, you need to make sure that then the food and the snacks are easily accessible. So it kind of just flows throughout the whole house, right? And then how you set up their bedrooms, right? Like, I always would have my kids lay out their clothes the night before. There's lots of different things that you can do to just make it as easy as possible. And really, in those cases too, maybe trying to get your kids to do as much on their own as they can, which is great. But you have to set it up in a way to make it easy for them. Because if it's not
Right.
easy for them, they're definitely not going to do it.
No. No.
And then it takes, some practice of getting them to do it anyways. But
Right.
you want to set up the systems for them.
I love systems. Systems, I mean, that's what people need. They just need systems that are set up so they can be successful with whatever they're doing. And I think too with kids, it's like if you just make them part of the process, like, oh, look, we're doing this really cool thing. When you have like excited energy and they see that someone's coming in and all this change, now they're feeling good about it. And, when you get these papers, I need you to bring them to me. They're going to sit here or, like paper. I just think paper's a lot, like filing systems, mail comes in, where do you throw it? Like coming up with a place that says, okay, here's what you're going to do. And it's kind of like Captain Obvious. Like you said so many practical things that we're all going, yeah, that makes sense. But when you're that person that's overwhelmed, you're not thinking, put the water bottles where they can reach it so you don't always have to be the one to go get it. Like it's obvious, but sometimes the very obvious escapes us because we're just like too overwhelmed with life.
Right. You're
And you're
too in
like,
the
I get paid to tell people we're going to put the cups on the lower level. And they're like, you've changed my life, Juliana. But
so funny.
seriously, like a lot of it is, it's just, we would think, it's what you focus on. So what you think is like, well, this just makes sense. And everyone's like, that's genius. And you're like, okay, well, what will do?
Right. You're like, well, yeah, no. And it's just even the simple things of labeling things. People will talk about like people take something out of the pantry and don't put it back in the right place. Well, if you have a place for it to go and it's labeled and it's clear where it's supposed to go, it's amazing. A lot of times people will
Yes.
do that. It may still need a little bit of help, but they can do it. So, excuse me. So yeah, but I do think making them a part of the process. And one of the things that's been really interesting to see, and I've had it happen enough to me, where what you realize is it's not just the moms, excuse me, that are so overwhelmed. What has been surprising is when we have come in and changed things and organized things and the moms feel great, then they'll come back and they're like, I didn't realize how much stress this was causing my kids, the anxiety that they felt, and they're just as happy or more excited. They're like, my gosh. And let me tell you, you start creating closets for kids that where things are easy for them to get at and it's labeled and they see it like they're thrilled. And you just, I think, especially when you're feeling all that stress, you don't realize how much of that is going down to the kids too. And
Absolutely.
sometimes they are our biggest fans. And I'm like, wow, who would have thought an 8-year-old is like singing our praises? They're so
Right, giving
excited.
you reviews online because they all have computers and they
Right,
all know how to do
exactly,
it.
I know. You're right, I should get those
You're
kids to start doing
the
my
greatest.
Google reviews.
That's awesome. No, I think yeah, so just helping people, we keep circling back to it. It's just giving people their life back, really making, more productivity in life because we probably waste so much time. And I'm thinking as you're talking about kids with ADHD, that's a whole different ballpark, right? Like when you're dealing with neurodivergence or ADHD or anything like that, that's like the number one thing they will say is create consistency and help them to have patterns and things that they recognize and know so they can be successful. And it's not always something new. Like you said, labels, color coding, just doing things that are, going to take some time in the beginning, but going to give you your life back
Yeah.
like over time.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What do you say? Like, do you have any tips? Like, let's say someone's like you said, sometimes you might give someone homework before you come in. I've always heard, like, with your wardrobe, and I typically do this at least once a year, usually once a season. I will go through. I have this rule, like, if I buy four things have to go sometimes, right? Just so I have space for everything. Or if I haven't worn it in a year, unless it's for Halloween or something crazy, like, get rid of it. Like, do you have any like tips or tricks for people who want to get started maybe and feel successful?
Yeah, I mean, I think the year is a good rule, I mean, if you haven't worn it, really, I mean, and sometimes people are like, "Oh, I love that." And or it's so stuffed in your closet, you didn't even realize you had it. So part of getting organized is you often find all these things you didn't realize you had, or, we certainly color code everything in closets and we organize by category and color. So then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I have 17 black t-shirts that all
Right?
basically look the same. So there's something like, that, yep, that is a part of it too. So I think, but yeah, that is an important rule, really just thinking, I work with a lot of people too, who let's say maybe their weights has fluctuated a bit. And so, but they're still holding on to all these clothes in a smaller
Right.
size that they want to
Holding
get
the
back
dream.
into, which I totally understand that. But then one of the things we'll say to them is, and I'm not saying get rid of everything, but if you get to that point, it's a little bit about thinking through like, are you really going to want to wear all these clothes again? Or you reach that weight goal that you've been really trying for. You may want to buy new things or those things aren't in style anymore. So, again, I'm not saying get rid of everything, but think through. You don't have to hold on to everything. And the other thing is, I think it's just, going back to when you work in closets with people, there's just, at the end of the day, it's a lot about real estate, right? We only have so much space in a closet. You only have so much space in a home. And so, what are the things that you're keeping in your closet? So, a lot of times we'll find, a dress we wore to our engagement party or, something we wore to a certain event. You may want to hold on to it because it's an important thing, that's great, but it doesn't need to be in that closet where all your everyday clothes are. Or, people keep a lot of keepsakes, let's say, in a closet. So again, I'm not saying you have to get rid of if those things are really important to you, you want to keep it, but that maybe isn't the best place because again, it goes back to real estate and the closet is where you want to keep all the things you're wearing all the time. So when your closets are overflowing, not only are we looking at the clothes and what do you wear, what are you not wearing, but then what else are you keeping in that closet that maybe just doesn't make sense that could be placed somewhere else. So those are all the type of things we'll talk through with clients.
Okay, so many pointers. I love all of that. You've given us so much to think about today. And I'm just wondering from you, like looking at the past 6 years, where you started, where you're at now, do you have like a vision for where you want to go with your business? Do you see things changing or expanding, or what are your thoughts for the future?
Yeah, I think it's just really, I just want to really grow the business, right? I love what I do. The team of women who work with me, we all love what we do. And so it's just having more opportunities to work with more clients. We love the moving jobs. Like those are great. The thing that, we've kind of touched on it a little bit before, but the moving, such an emotional time for people. And being able to help them throughout the process. Like I'm working with a couple right now, and we helped them get their house ready. They had already sold it just up front, which was amazing for them. But they were moving into assisted living, so they were only taking so many things. They were going to be doing an estate sale, so that's great. We were only coming in for a certain part of it. And then afterwards, it became clear that the estate sale wasn't going to be an option for them anymore. And so now here's this, couple moving into assisted living that are now responsible for clearing out all the remaining items in their home that they did not take with them to their senior living place, which was a lot of stuff. So because we were there already working with them, that was just something we were able to take right off their plate. They were feeling incredibly stressed about, now how am I going to get rid of everything in my house? And I was just we were able to put together a plan right away for them. We executed it. We can take care of every step of it and just, keep them up to date. And it's been great. So, we're just able to come in and help them right then and there.
That's huge because it's so hard. I watch that process too with downsizing with people who are going into assisted living or going to live with a family member. And I think you need such kid gloves because it's like they're saying goodbye to their life. A lot of times they can't drive anymore. So they're losing like all this autonomy and all this, like control over their life. So to come in and be able to really support the process and helping in that way, families who are going through that, or families who are, estate sales where it's their parent, their family home. And now, they're trying to decide where's all this stuff going to go? Do we really want to give it away? Are we going to estate sale? So, yeah, there's a lot of, like you said, human emotion, and it's very delicate in so many ways. And I've just really appreciated listening to you talk because it's clearly coming through your heart that you care about people and that you love what you do. And I think that's a joy, to know that there are people out there that are doing that. So I'm really glad that we had this opportunity today.
Me too. It's been great. I'm so thankful for just the chance to share about my business and what I do. And yeah, I really appreciate it.
Well, absolutely. And thank you again for joining me today, Juliana, and for sharing not only your expertise, your process for helping people, improving their lives, getting organized. I am positively sure that our listeners are going to want to know more about how they can reach you. So please let us know what's the best way to get in touch.
Yeah, so you can go to my website, which is serenityathome.org. And there's a page where you can fill out a form, and it gets to me right away, and I'll reach out and we can schedule a consultation. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at Serenity at Home Detroit. And there we do lots of, before and after photos. You can really see, the changes and the transformations, which is amazing. I mean, I will get people who will contact me and they're like, wow, that looks like my basement. Can you help me make my basement look like that? Absolutely, we can. And then my phone number, you can just reach me direct. My phone number is 48-225-2420, and you can get a hold of me that way.
Well, thank you so much. We'll have to do this again
I would love
because I'm
that.
sure we just scratched the surface and we'll definitely have to do this again. And Julianne and I just want to thank all of you for joining us today as well. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel, like our episode, and of course, tap the bell for notifications so that you are first to know when new episodes of the Onward and Upward podcast are posted. And until next time, everybody, be blessed.